President, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, thank you very much for your interest in today's event. It has become a good tradition to combine the presentation of the joint yearbook of the German Institutes for Peace and Conflict Research with the discussion of a topical issue relating to the EU's foreign security and defense policy. Before we start, a big thank you again to the Friedrich-Ebert Foundation, Renate Tenbusch, our cooperation partner, and of course to Sidonie Betzig for moderating the panel today, and of course for all the work in preparing this event. A special thanks is dedicated to Julia Eitler from our office for her input in preparing today's meeting. The EU as a global player blocked between a sense of urgency and the need for unity? That is the question we will discuss today. A warm welcome at this stage to our panelists. The researcher and author of the yearbook, Dr. Matthias Dembinski, to former Defense and Foreign Minister of Estonia, Sven Mikser, and last but not least, to Senior Military Superintendent Dirk Ackermann. Now I have to make some apologies because unfortunately the female panelist, Professor Dr. Ursula Schröder, despite all efforts, couldn't make it today to join us from Hamburg due to a cancellation of her flight last minute. So bear with us, we will improvise and still, I guess, have a very lively debate. With the newly elected European Parliament, the incoming European Commission, including a new DG for Defence, Industry and Space, and a new High Commissioner, it is a pivotal moment to discuss possible ways forward in EU's foreign security and defence policy. Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has repeatedly demanded that Europe should develop its Weltpolitikfähigkeit. When presenting her team in September, President-elect Ursula von der Leyen referred to this idea and announced that she would move from the political to a geopolitical commission, implying that the focus of the EU will be aiming at more external action due to a changing geopolitical landscape where China, the US and Russia follow their own agendas and where multilateralism is at stake, bringing up new uncertainties and risks for European values. Therefore, it was not a surprise that Ursula von der Leyen sees the next EU Commission also in the role of a guardian of multilateralism. So I guess one can say that it can be expected that the role of a High Representative is supposed to be strengthened in due time with the experienced current Spanish Foreign Minister Josep Borrell taking on this position. And then, moreover, it remains to be seen in which way the new DG on Defence, Industry and Space will be helping in promoting the vision for a common foreign security defence policy, if at all. One thing is clear though, a geopolitical agenda can only be implemented successfully in a politically united and economically strong European Union. But is there enough unity, and do all the European partners share the sense of urgency moving ahead? So far, the aim of strategic autonomy, meaning that Europe takes its fate in its own hands, has facilitated efforts on EU level to strive for a more ambitious and integrated common European foreign security and defence policy. But it remains to be seen whether the longing for a strong European voice in the world and the acknowledgement that there is a need for improving military capabilities and interoperability of European armed forces will actually be enough to maintain the momentum and will manage to keep member states united. Is there really enough political trust among member states to continue moving along together? And how can differences in strategic cultures, level of engagement and military traditions between member states be reconciled? That means, for example, when it comes to arms export control. As Protestant Church in Germany, we are monitoring the developments on the European level with a high degree of interest, strongly believing in the role of the EU as a soft power, and debating about how far European integration in foreign security and defence policy can reach without hampering the European Union as a peace project. Mrs. von der Leyen said in Strasbourg that the European Union of Security and Defence is embedded in comprehensive security, including diplomacy, reconciliation and reconstruction. A point we would strongly like to underline. Our church parliament will discuss the issue of peace this November in Dresden, and we in Brussels are interested in fostering the public debate about strategic autonomy. And I think today is a great opportunity to do that, and I guess now you and myself, we are eager to listen to our experts and to learn from them how they assess the state of play and where they see chances of establishing the EU as a global player without putting at risk the EU's trademark, namely conflict prevention, stabilization and diplomacy. I wish us a fruitful exchange. Thank you very much for coming today, and now hand over to Dr. Matthias Demlinski, who is also working for the Hessische Stiftung Friedens- und Konfliktforschung, so for a very renowned German Peace Institute, and who's one of the authors of this year's yearbook. And he will step in for Ursula Schröder to give us a brief overview of this year's yearbook. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here and to present this year's peace report. It's very unfortunate that Ursula Schröder couldn't make it. Well, the lessons to be drawn from this is probably that, well, we should avoid aircraft. I mean, they're not good for the environment, and they're not good for your schedule. Still, it's my pleasure to present the peace research, this year's peace report. This report is put out by the 4 leading German peace research institutes. That is the Peace Research Institute Frankfurt, the Bonn International Center for Conversion, the Institute for Peace Research and Security Policy at the University of Hamburg, and the Institute for Development and Peace in Duisburg. I think we started this yearly peace research reports, or PPIP reports, in way back, I think in 1988 or 89, something like this. So it's a very long tradition. But we refurbished this product in a certain way and put out the peace report in a new form. It appears now in the second year in this form. What is maybe new is that the report systematically analyzes, evaluates, and develops recommendations on 5 thematic fields. That is on armed conflicts, on sustainable peace, that is basically the whole debate about flight, migration, violence, asylum. In this year's report, we discuss and analyze, among other things, also the emerging European migration control system, migration control policies, and we ask or demand that this emerging migration control policy must not undermine human rights standards. And we also ask governments, the German government, but also other EU governments, to think more positively about ideas and initiatives, such as the one put forward by the European Parliament to issue or to think about humanitarian visas. Third topic, arms dynamics and arms control, institutions and peace, and the last one, transnational risks for peace. This peace report also has a kind of what we call a Joker theme, something which changes every year. And this year's Joker theme is the crisis of the global nuclear order. The 2019 report also has a kind of a focus. It focus on one worrying development, namely the erosion of established international rules and established international institutions. And indicators for the crisis of global governance we mentioned decay of arms control regimes, but also the increasing vetoes in the UN Security Council, which put at risk the ability to act of the European Security Council, the decay of the WTO and other regimes, the difficulty to put climate negotiations back on track, and so on and so forth. Global institutions are weakened at a time when demand for global governance is increasing. I mean, the number of armed conflicts are again up last year, or this year, in 2019. The number of people fleeing from armed conflict is still unacceptably high. The level of regional instability, especially in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf, is really alarming after the collapse of the Joint Comprehensive of the JCPOA, the nuclear deal with Iran. So there is an increasing need for global action, for global governance, for multilateralism at a time when international institutions are in crisis. How can disintegration be stopped? This is basically the topic of this year's report. One of the suggestions, the major suggestion that we put forward and then also elaborate on at least 4 or 5 thematic fields is that multilateralism needs partners. And so we ask Germany, but also the other European governments and the European Union to forge new partnerships for multilateralism. This is, of course, not an easy task. It's also not easy because to solve global problems, partnerships should not be restricted, cannot be restricted to liberal democracies alone. They must include other countries, which at the same time might come at the expense of liberal norms or values. But still, we think that depending on the different policy fields, differentiated partnerships with countries also like China and Russia are necessary to preserve at least a minimum of order and ability to act. A second suggestion that we put forward is that we should try to re-establish cooperation with Russia. I'm not going to this now in more detail. I guess we will discuss this later on in the debate. But still, this is one of the major issues, I guess, for Europe and also for Germany. Germany and the European Union should strengthen what is left of the global arms control regimes, and especially the Arms Trade Treaty. This is not only something for the national governments, I think that's also something taxed for the European Union. Especially at a time when Europe is beginning to develop the European arms procurement policy, when Europe is slowly but steadily beginning to develop an integrated market for armaments. And we believe that this must go hand in hand with the establishment also of a European arms export system that allows those for ethically grounded decisions on arms exports and also for politically accountable decisions on arms exports. This obviously is a difficult field. It is a political minefield, but still we think it's necessary to spend energy on innovative thinking. And one idea that we also propose in this piece of report is that we should think on the European level about strengthening our common position, trying to find common ground on how we interpret this common position, and maybe develop what could be called white lists as one step that would harmonize arms exports of European countries. I hope this peace report finds your interest. Unfortunately, we have only a limited number of copies available, but there is a lot of information on it, and also the major summary in English on the internet. So please visit, what's it called? I think it just type in Friedensgutachten and then you will find it. Thank you again. Thank you for your attention, and I'm also looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
I'm now very happy to invite to the microphone Dirk Ackermann, Senior Military Superintendent at the Office of the Protestant Church for the German Bundeswehr, and he will share with us a reflection from a theologian's point of view. Please.
So, good afternoon. I have to apologize. I'm not able to start with a joke because I'm from northern Germany. The sense of humor in northern Germany is a contradictory term. Especially I'm from Schleswig-Holstein, so as you can see, blue, white, red, our national colors, and we fought for our independence for decades in the 19th century, and the result was the occupation by Prussia. Since then, we are very serious. But afterwards, now we have European Union, and so since then, to be honest, that's not a joke, the relationship between the Danish population in my home country and German-speaking population, we can't speak German, but kind of, is much better. And that's a result of the European integration concept, and I would like to start with this. Because the European integration and as its result, the European Union were founded on the vision of reconciliation between former opponents of war in Europe and the establishment of an international peace order among European nations. Last year I was in Ypern and celebrating 100 years end of the Great War. And probably you have all been in Ypern and saw this old city which was reconstructed after the total destruction during World War I. And I grew up in Kiel, which was totally destructed in World War II. So, and after these disasters, the lessons learned we had in Europe was the nation's pursuit of a power position at a global level that has caused this destruction, and thus proven that such global power politics was doomed to fail. And it is the deliberate rejection of such an understanding of politics that formed the basis for the European unification process. So for me and my understanding, European Union in its entirety must be understood as an endeavor for peace and reconciliation, by which the Europeans draw an important lesson from the bitter experience of the 20th century. No more war in Europe, no more reckless pursuit of power, no more violation of human dignity. As I said, I'm from Northern Germany, so we are not able to make long stories short, but I try it now. We just do the opposite, to make short stories long. We have time in Northern Germany. So the European Union is a peace power. That's a quotation from the EKD memorial from 2007, live from God's peace, ensure just peace. So for decades, defense and security politics was not an issue in Europe. After the rejection of the French Parliament in the 50s, it was not a topic in European politics. That has changed in the last years. Especially since 2016, 17 different initiatives for enhanced cooperation in this area of politics have been taken, among others, as I thought, is it typical for the European Union? You like abbreviations? These CSDP, PESCO, EDF, and so on and so on. You know all these initiatives. I don't want to explain it. I want to remind you of a very deep experience we had last year in the German Bundestag. There was the 100 years ceremony of Remembrance Day in Germany, and President Macron was invited and he spoke to us. And he called for an enhanced cooperation in terms of security and defense policy in Europe, with a view to implement a European Defense Union and build up a European army. On the one hand, it was very touching, so my wife did cry. It was very, very sensitive. So, she's from Bavaria. So on the one hand, Macron thereby made it a central point of reference for peace project of Europe. He said, "Wir lieben euch Deutsche." That was very German. Northern German would never say, "Ich liebe dich." But he said it, he is a French. And he said, the central point of Europe is reconciliation, and it's a peace project. But on the other hand, he considers establishing a European army as an essential key to European integration and saving the European peace and reconciliation project. Nevertheless, we discussed it yesterday evening, critics sees the risk of current initiatives for increased cooperation in terms of security policy resulting in the transformation of the European Union from a peace project to a military power with global claims. They believe that there is the risk of the European Union turning away from its guiding principle of a peace power. I don't have to explain. The strategic environment of the European Union has changed radically in the last years. And this radical change has put the question of European Union's capacity for action in matters of security policy on the agenda. I'm serving as a military chaplain inside the military services, so I know I can tell you hours about the weaknesses not only on military forces in Germany, but in the EU. A lack of personnel and equipment, gaps in military capabilities, slow response capabilities, slow cooperation procedures, despite the fact that defense expenditures of all EU members taken together are the second highest in the world, and the armed forces with a total of 1 million service members are considered the largest worldwide. This raises the question, which guiding principle is decisive for the European Union in its foreign and security policy? And here's the point, as a member of my church, of the Protestant Church in Germany, to remind of the guiding principle concerning international peace. The guiding principle of just peace, which has been described in the EKD memorial from 2007. From the point of my church, foreign and security policy must be led by the model of just peace. That means, civis pacem para pacem, not bello. Civis pacem para pacem. If you want to live in peace, prepare for peace. Foreign and security policy has to think first about the conditions of peace. Common values, rule of law, effective mechanisms of peaceful dispute resolutions. Therefore, the focus of foreign and security policy has to be on the development of civilian instruments. That means diplomacy, development, cooperation, humanitarian aid. Military instruments are only an extreme resort to enforce the rule of law. They are necessary, but they are an extreme resort. Does not mean last resort, extreme resort. So looking on the initiatives in defense policy, the main question is which guiding principle is decisive for the European Union? Is the European Union on the way to becoming a global power capable of taking political and military action as a result of the outlined security policy initiatives? Such a global power would have as its objective to maintain peace on the European continent or restore it in the face of aggressors through the use of military capabilities and to represent its own interests at a global level. You know my answer. Looking on my introduction, not talking about the sense that we made in Schleswig-Holstein, the introduction of the European Union, my introduction makes it already clear that such a transition to a global power position is in conflict with the original idea of Europe as a peace project. It was the deliberate abandonment of such an understanding of politics that advanced the European unification process. The abandonment of a direct execution of power and the strengthening of a global peace order and legal system based on universal values such as respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, as well as the protection of human rights, have made the European Union a successful European peace project and a model for other regions. I don't want to talk again about our reconciliation program in Schleswig-Holstein, but if I look back, this year and the last year we celebrate some ceremonies in the UK together with our colleagues in the chapels here. And I was invited into churches, into worship services, which has been destroyed by the German Luftwaffe during World War II, and now to have reconciliation services and prayers together. That was very moving, and that was a moment when I was crying. Ima, I'm from Schleswig-Holstein. The EU understands peace as a political work process which goes beyond external borders protection and international police work. And so in my perception, 2012, the EU was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize deservedly. Hence, it can be doubted whether the outlined initiatives are meant to really change the guiding principle of the EU. We'll discuss it afterwards, hopefully. The EU as a global military power would just be one more military alliance, increasing the potential for conflict at international level. But, we heard it, we are in the crisis of international law and international institutions. So, what can be the role of European Union as a global power? This crisis, or these crises, call for an international actor who will contribute the full range of its security policy capabilities to prevent and constructively manage violent conflicts, including military capabilities to prevent threats to peace. The following will be required of such an actor. First, politics oriented towards cooperative security and peaceful change. We had it in the past, was very successful. Prioritization of preventive strategies, albeit not excluding military interventions, including rule-based coercive action. Third, enhancement of civilian and military tools for constructive conflict management. Fourth, cooperation with actors from societies. And fifth, the cooperative relations with international and regional security organizations in case of military interventions, especially with the UN Security Council. So military capabilities will also need to be improved to become capable of action in this context. And there's, I can tell you, a lot of space of improvement. Synergy effects, the common European defense culture, saving potentials are keywords in this context. If security policy initiatives serve these objectives, they will need to be supported. They fall short if European foreign and security policy would confine itself only to improving military cooperation and enhancing military capabilities. In light of the crisis of multilateralism and the internal turmoil putting the EU to the test, the EU should continue to actively strive for reviving the common base of values and the idea of European integration as a peace project, and maintaining and further developing a resilient and functioning international peace order. So far, this has been its strength and legitimization. The EU should continue to draw on this strength and develop it further. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much to Frau Hatzinger, Ms. Hatzinger, Mr. Ackermann, and also Mr. Dubinsky for basically setting the stage and introducing well, the field and the background against what we'll be discussing. I will just shortly introduce again the panelists, just not to lose any details. I'd like to welcome Sven Mixer, member of the European Parliament and member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs and Security Defence, and recently just changed sides basically, because until recently you were Minister on Foreign Affairs in Estonia, and before that Minister of Defence. So it would be great, I think, to have your member states' perspective coming in, as well as your background now as a representative of the EU institutions, namely the European Parliament. to my left, Matthias Dembinski, co-author of the Peace Report and researcher at the Peace Research Institute in Frankfurt, where you focus on European foreign and security policy, transatlantic relations and NATO. So I guess also elements which will come to the discussion here with regards to other international partners, namely the US and also NATO, in shaping the security environment the EU is finding itself. And last but not least, Mr. Ackermann, the chair of the theological policy branch of the Protestant Church of the German Bundeswehr. So basically, the stage is set with the peace report and the security challenges we are facing on the global and international level. And at the same time, the EU at the moment is in the process of reassessing its foreign security and defense policy. So the time is ripe for us also to discuss and also assess the EU as a global player. And well, you described the security challenge, Mr. Dembinski, and Josep Borrell actually stated this Monday during the parliamentary hearing that the world has changed for the worse. And the question is here, is there enough unity and do all the European partners share the sense of urgency in moving ahead and, well, for further cooperation? So at the moment there's the talk for a geostrategic commission. And Sven Mixer, how do you assess this, well, geostrategic ambition? And how do you see the projects that were undertaken in the last year, namely PESCO, CARD, EDF, in terms of really building up the EU as a security provider? And what else would you wish in this toolbox?
A very good afternoon. Is it afternoon? I believe it is. Thank you very much for the invitation, and perhaps I'll step back a bit and say, well, the European Union definitely was called into existence as a peace project. But I remember from my schoolboy days in central Estonia, which is quite a bit north from Germany, so there is making an inappropriate joke. There was a Soviet time joke that obviously war brings a lot of casualties, but in peace fight, which was a very popular term in the Soviet Union, in peace fight there would be no spies whatsoever. And it was sort of obviously an irony because Soviet Union was trying to picture itself as a fighter for peace in the world at a time when it was actually occupying a big part of Central and Eastern Europe and was fighting war in Afghanistan and doing other nasty things in other places. But it's also, I think, a reminder that at the time when the EU was very successfully completing its peace project in part of Europe, there was another part of Europe that actually had not been liberating following the Second World War. So today we like to see that the borderline between war and peace is not always so clear. I think it wasn't back then because we still continue to live with the effects of the Second World War in much of Europe. And also, while the EU was called into existence as a peace project, then by the time that the EU was launched, or the predecessor to the EU was launched in the early 50s, actually NATO had already been born, and it had been created out of realization in Western Europe that the other party to the winning coalition in World War II had not demilitarized, had not switched to the peaceful sort of reconstruction regime after the war, and so it was still necessary to have the war-fighting capability even while building up the integrated Europe and switching to peace gear. So I think that this maxim that's often attributed to US President Theodore Roosevelt, that if you speak softly but carry a big stick, you will go far. I think it's still to a degree relevant. which means that in order to be successful in building peace, both in Europe as well as around Europe, we actually do need a significant war-fighting capability. Now, how far that can go as a European project, obviously there are natural limits. Sometimes big initiatives start with slogans that do not, at the time of uttering, do not have much content yet. I think that is strategic autonomy or European army, examples of such concepts. We hear a lot that if we want to actually be efficient, then we need to switch from consensus decision-making in foreign and security affairs to quality majority voting or more speedier and more efficient decision-making procedures. At the same time, we say that, well, the European defense will never be complete without the European army. I think these are contradictory goals in many ways. I think when you think back to early 2000s, after the September 11th attacks against the US, when the Americans went to war in Afghanistan and asked their European allies to join them, then the first time that the decision was taken to deploy the German Bundeswehr to that theater of operation, it actually required a vote of confidence in the city government. So, which is to illustrate that actually deploying military forces of a nation is such an attribute of national sovereignty that I very much doubt whether any European Union member state would actually delegate that right to deploy their soldiers to go and fight and potentially die in a foreign country to a European institution such as the European Parliament, the European Council, especially if the decision is going to be made by majority voting. And that would actually be going much further than NATO. You think of how NATO makes decisions to launch operations. Obviously, it takes consensus in the North Atlantic Council to start an operation. But then the fourth generation is actually by independent decisions by member states. You can opt to stay out, or you can opt to send your forces, and perhaps even equally importantly, there is also the cost slide by default principle, so that if you decide to contribute forces to that operation, then you actually will have to pay for them as well. So if we envisage a European army, I think it would be taking it much further down the road than is the case with NATO. Now with these projects, PESCO, European Defence Agency, European Defence Fund, I think they are important initiatives. Many of them actually started from the understanding that European defence industries and European defence equipment base were far too fragmented. And it didn't make sense, and it wasn't a very good way to spend taxpayers' money for each major European country to develop their own main battle tank or any other piece of equipment. So by pooling forces, obviously, or pooling resources, obviously it was possible to get more bang for the buck. And that's true, and that's good. There's also another angle to those initiatives. I think that Europe is coming to the realization that with the current spending levels, it's very difficult to compete with other big players, notably the US, when it comes to military industries. And I think there's this industrial competition aspect definitely to those efforts. And it's, well, not much use denying that actually both the US and the EU are in some ways protectionist when it comes to their own defense markets. And obviously with the US having an edge when it comes to military industrial production, then the EU needs to do something to catch up in certain areas. When you look at PESCO initiatives, then obviously they are very diverse. Some of them are very much operational, so they focus on enhancing the ability of the different national forces or units to operate together in a theatre. Others are actually focusing much more on military industries. I think they're good and they're necessary. But as is the case with NATO, I think in the EU as well, this is only, I won't say tip of an iceberg, but it's only a small part of our collective capability. And I think that the bulk of the EU capabilities is today and will be for the foreseeable future the sum of the individual member states' capabilities that they are willing and ready and able to bring to play. And sometimes we've seen efforts by the EU to develop capabilities I think EU battle groups is a very good example. That was a capability that was called into existence out of the realization that there may be or might be a need for the EU to take action in some theatre close to EU borders where the US would not be ready or willing to act. And then the initial actually full operational capability was declared about a dozen years ago. But the forces of the capability has never been purposefully deployed because there are financial constraints, but there are also political difficulties. So I think that this also illustrates how far we are today from emerging as a sort of very unified single force on the global scale. I might go on far longer when it comes to arms control, when it comes to multilateralism, but perhaps I had a chance to come back to some of those issues after the initial round.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would also have a follow-up question, but and now first turn to Mr. Dębliński. So one of the major points of the peace report is basically that the global institutions and rules of peace and security are at crisis at the moment. And that you call them for an innovatively and proactively shaping of international politics. So Josep Borrell said on Monday that the EU has to learn to use the language of power. Is that what you meant? Or how would you wish to see an accomplished security provider as the EU, or rather peace power? Because we see in our neighborhood and current developments not only in the Middle East but also international arms and disarmament regimes are falling apart. What does the EU need to provide a proactive and innovative shape in international politics?
Thank you very much again for having me here. I mean, my starting point, or I guess our starting point, is of course that we live in a very rapidly changing security environment. We cannot rely, as we did in the past, to the extent that we did in the past on the United States to take care of our security. I mean, we still have NATO, and NATO is probably not going away for the foreseeable future, although there still are question marks. But still, I mean, Europe has to take on much more responsibilities. At the same time, I guess we should not ask too much of the European Union. I mean, after all, it is still, even if this is a special kind, but it's still a kind of an international organization. It's a composite of states. It is not a unitary state. And I think we should not compare the European Union to traditional world powers. We will always fall short. The specific advantages of the European Union are not in the field of hard military power. And they will probably never be in the field of hard military power. So my advice would be that the European Union should focus on where its unique strengths are, and that is in stabilization, in peace building, in preventive policies, in diplomacy, in trying to create structures for peace, or to create an environment that is more conducive to peace. And unfortunately, the European Union has also not been living up to its potential, even in these areas. And here we should spend our energy and should think about how the European Union could speak and act more united, could speak with one voice, act more united, and bring its diplomatic, economic, security weight to the table.
Thank you very much. Maybe as a follow-up to that point, a question to Mr. Ackermann, because you have also, stated the EU as a peace power, and maybe you could illustrate a little bit more in detail what is actually the added value of the EU as a peace provider. As we heard, the question of European army is more a question of long term. But what is the question, or what is that the EU can provide as a security provider, what an individual member state cannot provide?
So I've already said, so I will tell you a short story, really short. So 7 years ago I was here in Brussels and we visited NATO headquarters and the European defense agencies and so on. Comparing these two systems, my response was 7 years ago, leave all defense on NATO, don't do it on EU level, because the NATO structure is very, very experienced, it's very clear. You have Norway in this system and so on and so on. And it's very, very complicated to create a security system inside the European Union. And we told about the first steps and the complications we had. So I think, but that's one point. On the other hand, looking on the European Union, the branch for crisis prevention, conflict management, is a unique selling point in comparing to NATO. So these are the strengths, the added assets of the European Union. That is necessary in conflict prevention, in conflict management. Looking on Afghanistan, for example, the problem, we discussed it yesterday evening, the problem was in Afghanistan that we've sent a lot of military forces inside Afghanistan, but we had to send more reconciliation workers into this society to develop a peaceful order inside Afghanistan. And that could be the task of the European Union, and we have failed, actually.
Maybe to lead that directly to a question to Sven Mixer. Directly maybe react to that, but also, the question of how do you think that different approaches and, strategic cultures of the different member states, how do you think they can be reconciled within the EU security and defense or foreign and security policy?
Actually, I do not see a difference in strategic cultures as a nature of stumbling block. But I think it's always useful to bear in mind that actually a vast majority of the European Union member states are actually European members, European allies in NATO. And there's a single set of forces. I don't think any country, Germany, France, Estonia, no one just sets aside certain military forces or certain parts of the military for NATO purposes and then another part for EU purposes. NATO itself doesn't have much of a warfighting capability. I mean, there are some unique capabilities that are NATO's, like the intelligence aircraft. Not too many actually, and it has headquarters and staffs and plans and decision-making structures and certain structures to run operations. But actually, the forces are those of the member states, and it's always going to be the same for the European question is, I mean, I agree that perhaps we can foresee a great number of operations that would have to be conducted without the participation of the US or Canada in the future. But the critical question actually is which is the organization of first choice. And I think that whether we would definitely whether we would prefer to do things without the Americans, or whether we should be ready to do things without Americans if they are not interested or willing. And I'm a very strong Atlanticist in that. I believe that NATO should remain the organization of choice when it comes to military operations. But that doesn't mean that the EU shouldn't develop certain structures or headquarters or planning formats of its own. I think it's necessary without unnecessary duplication to do that. And I think that it's a process well underway. When it comes to this military-industrial cooperation, then obviously the question is whether it's driven by the desire to actually address the existing capability gaps and capability shortfalls, or if there's some sort of a different driving force here. And there are some very well-known capability shortfalls. There are some assets that only the US possesses today, like the ability to project significant force over very long distances. The EU doesn't have strategic capability. It doesn't have a carrier strike groups floating different oceans. It even doesn't have the refueling capability, and that might be something that the EU needs to develop on its own. When you think back to Libya or other similar contingencies, but there are certain capabilities that the EU probably collectively will not develop, and no single EU member state will develop in the foreseeable future. So I think in some areas, obviously when it comes to global responsibilities, we will rely on our Atlantic allies. And another thing is that when we make a decision to develop, or in order to achieve more strategic or tactical autonomy, when we take a decision to develop a certain capability, it shouldn't be done in a way that we sort of work for years and years and years to come up with a concept that falls somewhere between C-130 and C-17 and doesn't take off at all and is essentially obsolete from the moment of conception. So that's probably not a good use of our scarce resources.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dembinski, and also Sven Mixer just mentioned, global responsibility, and the EU needs to, take up more of that, and that was also mentioned in the EU global strategy. And we now see a lot of focus, and and the discussions here on Brussels level is taken up by the discussion on PESCO, further defense cooperation, and so on. Do you see a shift in paradigm, and do you see maybe also the more difficult, more political debate overlapped by all these considerations for deeper defense integration?
First of all, I don't really see, this is one of the questions that is hotly debated actually in my country, whether we witness a shift in paradigm, whether the European Union is turning away from its character as a peace project and in the direction of a military bloc or something like this. And there are, of course, also voices in the Protestant Church, but I personally still don't see that. I don't see the paradigm change, and I would also argue that the greater maybe danger or challenge right now is not the prospect of the European Union becoming militaristic, but I think it's the greater danger is that Europe is too weak in this field, and that the European Union is not really up to the challenge that is presented. As I mentioned, I think the reason why the European Union has been perceived by many observers as a kind of force for peace, and the European Union was a force for peace, I think the hidden reason lies in its institutional structure. It is not a unitary state. It is a state that is made up of, or it is a kind of a composite unity or entity that is made up of 28, but in the future 27 states. And in the area of foreign security and defense policy, it is governed by consensus voting. And I mean, it's always difficult then to achieve consensus between states like Austria and France. So the European Union in a certain way is, there's a term in German, it's called strukturelle Nichteinigungsfähigkeit. In English, is that the structural inability to attack others in a certain way. And this is the European Union. I mean, the European Union has built into its structures a lot of kind of cautionary measures, which does not allow an overly aggressive use of military force. And this is not going to change by PESCO or by the European Defence Fund and so on and so forth. So really I don't see this change in paradigm. Instead I would argue that this might give us a new foundation that the European Union is in the future up to the challenge of really organizing its security environment more effectively and is able to really speak in one voice and bring its values and norms to the world more effectively. Whether we are really able to do that, it doesn't only depend on the defense fund and so on and so forth, it depends much more on our institutional setup, on the reform of the institutional setup, and the reform of how the Commission and the External Action Service works. Depends on how we organize voting procedures and so on and so forth. So I think institutional reforms are much more important, or the success of European foreign security policy depends much more on institutional reform than on those military issues.
Thank you very much. One last question to Mr. Mixer before I open for questions and answers to the floor. One of the recommendations was given in the Peace report was to basically build up new partnerships and set up new cooperations with partners on various topics, and Russia was named particularly. Do you see international relations or reaching out to actors, partners which are maybe not the partners of our choice, but of the need to work on a rules-based order? And is that something the EU can rely on to build up a more stable environment, stable security environment?
Well, in Russia, we have a neighbor who has actually over the past dozen years has waged two offensive wars against two of its neighbors. That's when you think back to in recent history. I think only Saddam Hussein's Iraq managed to do something similar. But so I think it's something that we have to take extremely seriously. I mean, we have a country and a regime that doesn't shy away from using military force against its neighbors when it thinks it's necessary in order to achieve its political goals. And here, I mean, obviously we have to be very situationally aware of what they are up to. and we have to be ready to deter. I mean, it's always preferable. We don't want to fight a war with them, but we want to make sure that those adventures will not be repeated against the European Union member states, but against, I mean, other neighbors of Russia also. And the EU has adopted a policy of 5 principles following the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Basically, and that stipulates that actually we would have to stick to the restrictive measures that we applied following the illegal annexation of Crimea and the aggression against Eastern Ukraine until such a time when Russia sort of returns to the path of following the international norms of behavior and international law. And that has not happened, and there are no very strong indications that it's going to happen anytime soon. But it also, one of those 5 principles also mentions the need to work with Russia in areas where it's sort of in mutual benefit and serves the sort of overriding interest. And for example, when it comes to arms control and when it comes to particularly in the non-conventional sphere, then it's very difficult to do something significant without Russians being part of that dialogue. So the collapse of the INF and what that means for European security has been discussed a lot over the past few months, and obviously that also touches upon the issue of sort of bilateral or unilateral, multilateral arrangements, and we as Europeans we instinctively prefer multilateral arrangements to bilateral arrangements, and we agreed with the US assessment that Russia had been in violation with the INF treaty for quite some time, and now they developed weapons that were banned under the INF, and we also agree that there are third players in the world who do develop similar systems today, so there is a need for multilateral replacement for that decades-old bilateral treaty, but obviously no one wants to see a bilateral treaty collapse without a multilateral replacement being in place. So that's I think a very difficult dilemma. But if we want to do something in the area of sub-strategic or even strategic nuclear weapons, then obviously Russia will have to be part of that.
Yeah, thank you very much.